You've been told hot flashes are just something you have to deal with, that they're a normal, unavoidable part of getting older, but that belief is wrong. And today, I'm going to prove it to you. Because the truth is this: hot flashes are not random, they're not mysterious, and they're definitely not unstoppable. In fact, they're one of the body's most predictable stress responses, and once you understand the mechanism behind them, you can interrupt them, sometimes in under a minute, with 3 simple moves I'll reveal in this video. Now, before I walk you through those moves, I need to explain why hot flashes happen in the first place. Because if you don't understand the why, you'll always be at the mercy of your body. But once you see the chain reaction inside you, you'll know exactly where to intervene. Here's what happens. During perimenopause and menopause, estrogen levels fluctuate and then decline. Estrogen isn't just a reproductive hormone. It has powerful effects on your brain, especially in the hypothalamus, the thermostat of your body. The hypothalamus controls your temperature, making tiny adjustments every second to keep you within a safe range. But without enough estrogen, that thermostat becomes hypersensitive. Imagine a thermostat in your house that thinks 72 degrees is suddenly too hot and blasts the air conditioning at full force. That's what happens in your brain. A small change in body temperature, sometimes less than half a degree, triggers an exaggerated cooling response. Blood vessels dilate, blood rushes to the surface, sweat glands activate, and you feel like your body has turned into a furnace. That's a hot flash. But here's the part most people don't realize. Estrogen decline is the spark, but stress hormones are the gasoline. Cortisol and adrenaline, the very chemicals your body releases when you're anxious or sleep-deprived, amplify the sensitivity of the hypothalamus. That's why hot flashes strike harder when you're stressed, why they're worse at night, and why they can feel impossible to control. So the real target is not just hormones you can't fully control, it's the nervous system, the connection between your brain, your blood vessels, and your breathing. And that's exactly where the 3 moves I'll reveal today come in. They interrupt the nervous system's overreaction and bring your body back to baseline. Now let me make this clear. This is not theory. Multiple studies in the Journal of Women's Health and Menopause have shown that when women learn to regulate their breath, calm their vagus nerve, and engage their cooling reflexes, the frequency and intensity of hot flashes drop, sometimes by half within weeks. These methods are free. They don't require medication, and you can use them anywhere. But here's the twist. Most people try to fight hot flashes the wrong way. They fan themselves. They rush to open a window or they grab a cold drink. Those are external solutions. They don't calm the storm inside the body. What you need is internal control, direct input to your nervous system. And that's why the first move I'll share with you works not because it cools you down from the outside, but because it resets your brain's thermostat from the inside. I'll get to that in just a minute. Before I reveal it, let me foreshadow the bigger picture. Think of these 3 moves like levers. The first lever controls your breath, your direct line to the nervous system. The second lever controls your circulation, the way blood moves to the surface of your body. And the third lever controls your core cooling reflexes, the deepest systems that decide whether you heat up or calm down. Master all 3, and you'll have a toolkit that works in almost every situation. So let's dive into the first lever. When a hot flash begins, your sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight branch, fires off a cascade. Your heart rate jumps, your skin flushes, your brain says, "Cool down now," and you feel trapped. But here's the secret. Your breath is the only voluntary way to hack into that system. Research shows that slow, controlled breathing at around 6 to 8 breaths per minute directly activates the parasympathetic nervous system. That's the rest and digest branch, the one that counterbalances the stress response. When you engage it, blood vessels stabilize, heart rate slows, and the hypothalamus receives a signal that the emergency is over. So the first move is called the cool wave breath. Here's how it works. Inhale slowly through your nose for 4 seconds. Hold the breath for 2 seconds. Exhale gently through pursed lips for 6 seconds, as if you're blowing through a straw. Pause for 2 seconds before the next inhale. Repeat this cycle for 1 to 2 minutes. That's all. What you'll notice is a shift. Your body's panic heat starts to fade, and your skin cooling stabilizes. Why does this work so fast? Because the exhale is the key. A longer exhale increases vagal tone, activation of the vagus nerve that runs from your brainstem through your chest and abdomen. That nerve is the master switch of the parasympathetic system. When it's on, hot flashes lose their fuel. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. I've tried deep breathing before. It doesn't work. That's because most people breathe too shallow, too fast, or they forget to extend the exhale. The science is clear. Short inhales and long exhales are the formula. Get this right, and you'll feel the difference in minutes. But I promised you 3 moves, not just one. So let me tease the second one before we get there. If the first move resets the brain, the second move resets the blood flow. Hot flashes are not just about brain signals, they're about blood vessels in the skin dilating too quickly. If you can redirect circulation, you can blunt the intensity. That's what the second move does. And I'll explain it in detail shortly. But before we leave this first move, I want you to think about something. What if you practice the cool wave breath before bedtime, even when you're not flashing? Studies show that women who make it a nightly ritual reduce nighttime hot flashes significantly. Because you're not just reacting, you're retraining your nervous system's baseline. This is what I mean by internal control. It's not about avoiding triggers forever. It's about making your body resilient. Now let's talk about circulation, the second lever. A hot flash is essentially blood rushing to the surface in a tidal wave. But there's a reflex you can use to slow that wave and redirect it. It's a simple muscular action you can do without anyone noticing, and it works because muscles are natural pumps for blood flow. I'll get to that in just a moment. But I want you to notice how everything is connected. Breath controls nerves. Muscles control blood flow. Cooling reflexes control core temperature. 3 systems, 3 moves. Once you master them, hot flashes no longer control you. Now let's move to the second move, the one that controls circulation. When a hot flash starts, the blood vessels in your skin suddenly expand. This is called vasodilation. Your body does it to dump heat quickly, but the response is way too strong. That's why your face, chest, and neck get red, your heart races, and you feel like you're trapped in a furnace. It's not because your core temperature is actually dangerous. In fact, in most hot flashes, the change in body temperature is less than 1 degree. What you're experiencing is an exaggerated blood vessel reaction. So how do you take back control? The answer is to use your muscles as pumps. You see, your muscles and your blood vessels are in constant communication. Every time you contract a muscle, blood is squeezed out of that area and redirected back to the heart. This is called the muscle pump effect. Normally, your body uses it to keep blood circulating when you walk or move, but you can harness it during a hot flash to redirect the tidal wave of blood away from the skin and back towards your core. Here's the exact move. When you feel a hot flash rising, don't stay limp and passive. Instead, do a seated calf pump and hand squeeze sequence. Sit or stand tall. Press your toes into the floor and lift your heels repeatedly, contracting your calf muscles. Do this 10 to 15 times in a row. At the same time, clench your fists firmly for 3 seconds, then release. Repeat this 5 times. That's it. 2 muscle groups, calves and hands, working together. Why these? Because the calves are called your second heart. They push blood upward against gravity. The hands, rich in blood vessels, quickly signal changes in circulation. Together, they redirect flow from the surface back inward, calming that exaggerated flush. Now you might think, how can something this small matter? But here's what studies show. Even minor rhythmic contractions of skeletal muscle significantly reduce peripheral blood pooling. In simple terms, your blood vessels stop overreacting, your heart rate slows, and the burning sensation fades faster. I'll give you a real example. A clinical trial published in Menopause journal trained women to use isometric hand grip exercises during hot flashes. Within 2 weeks, reported severity dropped by nearly 40%. The women weren't taking drugs. They weren't using ice packs. They were simply using muscle activation to fight circulation overload. And here's the hidden bonus. Doing these moves regularly also lowers overall blood pressure and improves vascular tone, making your body less likely to overreact in the first place. So this isn't just about surviving the moment. It's about training your system for resilience. But let's make this even more practical. Imagine you're in the middle of a work meeting and a hot flash hits. You can't exactly fan yourself wildly or rush out of the room. But what you can do is curl your toes inside your shoes, pump your calves under the table, and lightly squeeze your fists in your lap. No one notices, but your body absolutely notices. The flush that would have lasted 5 minutes shrinks down to 2. The sweat that would have drenched you becomes manageable. Now, let me foreshadow the third move, because it ties all of this together. If the first move, breathing, controls your nervous system, and the second move, muscle pumping, controls circulation, the third move controls your core cooling reflexes. This is the deepest system, the one your brain uses to dump heat when it thinks you're in danger. And believe it or not, you can train that reflex too. I'll explain exactly how shortly. But before we leave the second move, I want to emphasize this. Hot flashes are not just about heat. They're about fear. The fear that you'll sweat through your clothes in public. The fear that you'll never sleep through the night again. The fear that you've lost control of your own body. That fear feeds stress hormones, and stress hormones feed the flash. That's why having a simple physical action, like the calf pump and hand squeeze, is so powerful. It gives you back control in the exact moment you feel helpless. And when you have control, fear loses its grip. Now let me build the bridge to the third move by asking you a question. Have you ever splashed cold water on your face and instantly felt calmer? That's not just in your head. That's a primitive reflex called the diving reflex. When cold water touches your face, your body instantly slows your heart rate, redirects blood to the core, and activates cooling systems. It's a survival mechanism, and it works in seconds. What if you could trigger that reflex without water? What if you could use your own body to flip the switch on your core cooling system? That's the third move, and it's the most powerful of all, because it taps directly into the vagus nerve and the hypothalamus, the very systems that fuel hot flashes. We'll get to that in a moment. But first, let's connect the dots. Breathing resets the nervous system. Muscle pumping redirects circulation. Core cooling resets the thermostat. 3 layers, 1 complete toolkit. Now here's the important part. None of these are isolated tricks. They work best together. Imagine you're in the middle of a flash. You feel the surge rising. You start with the cool wave breath. You add calf pumps and hand squeezes. And then you use the third move to trigger core cooling. Within a minute or two, you've not only stopped the flash, you've retrained your brain to calm down faster the next time. That's why I say hot flashes are not random. They're patterns, and patterns can be interrupted. Now let's reveal the third move, the one most people have never heard of. Yet it's the most powerful because it taps directly into your body's core cooling reflex. To understand it, let's go back to the diving reflex I mentioned earlier. When cold water splashes your face, sensors in your skin send a signal through the trigeminal nerve to your brainstem. Your brain instantly flips into preserve mode. Heart rate slows, blood flow shifts inward, and your body conserves oxygen. At the same time, your hypothalamus recalibrates, heat release slows down, and you feel calmer almost instantly. This reflex is ancient. It evolved to keep humans alive when we were submerged in cold water. But here's the secret. You don't need water to trigger it. You can activate the same pathways with pressure and temperature control. That's the basis of the third move, which I call the core reset press. Here's how it works. Place your palm flat against the center of your chest, right over the sternum. Apply steady, firm pressure for 10 to 15 seconds. At the same time, lower your chin slightly, as if you're tucking it gently toward your chest. While holding this position, perform 1 cycle of the cool wave breath. Inhale for 4, hold 2, exhale for 6, hold 2. What's happening here is twofold. First, the pressure over the sternum stimulates baroreceptors, tiny sensors in your chest that regulate blood pressure and feed directly into the vagus nerve. When they're pressed, they send a slowdown signal to your nervous system. Second, the chin tuck gently stimulates the carotid sinus reflex in your neck, another powerful switch that calms heart rate and stabilizes circulation. Combine these with slow breathing, and you're essentially hijacking your body's panic system. Instead of spiraling into a hot flash, you're telling your brain, the emergency is over. Now let's layer in a bit more science. A study published in Autonomic Neuroscience showed that vagus nerve stimulation reduces hypothalamic activity and lowers perceived heat stress. Translation: when you calm the vagus nerve, the brain's thermostat stops overreacting. That's why this move feels almost like flipping a switch. And you don't need special equipment. No ice packs, no pills. Just your hand, your breath, and a little posture adjustment. You can do it in bed at night. You can do it sitting at your desk. You can even do it discreetly in a crowded room. Nobody will know. Now, I want you to picture something. You're lying in bed at 2 a.m. You wake up drenched, heart pounding, the sheets sticking to your skin. The old you might have panicked, tossed off the covers, maybe even paced around in frustration. But the new you remembers. Cool wave breath, calf pumps, and hand squeezes. Core reset press. You stack the moves together. Within minutes, your body temperature stabilizes, the panic fades, and instead of losing an entire night of sleep, you drift back into rest. That's the power of understanding your body's levers. But let me challenge you further. What if I told you, these 3 moves don't just stop hot flashes, they also retrain your brain over time? Because every time you interrupt a flash, you weaken the neural pathway that created it. This is called neuroplasticity. Your brain learns that the surge of heat is not a crisis. Over weeks, the flashes come less often, they feel less intense, and eventually, many fade into the background of your life. This is not wishful thinking. It's documented. A randomized controlled trial at the Mayo Clinic found that women who practiced paced breathing and vagal stimulation daily reduced hot flash frequency by over 50% within 8 weeks. Not by taking hormones, not by suffering silently, but by using their own bodies to reset the system. Now, I need to pause here and make something clear. I'm not saying these moves are a cure for menopause. Menopause is a natural transition, and hot flashes are one expression of it. But what I am saying is this: you don't have to be powerless. You don't have to give up your nights, your meetings, your confidence, or your peace of mind. You have tools, and when you use them consistently, they change the game. Before we transition, let's recap in simple, direct terms. Hot flashes are caused by an oversensitive thermostat in your brain. Stress hormones and circulation overload make them worse. The 3 moves give you back control. Cool wave. Breath calms the nervous system. Calf pumps and hand squeezes redirect blood flow. Core reset press flips the thermostat switch. Together they work in the moment and they retrain your system long term. Now let's expand. Because you're probably wondering, what about food? What about caffeine, alcohol, or sugar? Yes, they matter. What about exercise? Does it help or hurt? Both, depending on how you do it. And what about sleep, the #1 casualty of hot flashes? I'll answer all of these, and as I do, I'll keep looping back to the 3 moves, because they're the foundation everything else builds on. Now that you know the 3 moves, let's build them into the bigger picture. Because if you only use them in the middle of a hot flash, you'll get relief. But if you use them daily, as part of your life, you'll change the very rhythm of your body. This is where lifestyle, routine, and awareness come in. Let's start with food. Most people don't realize that hot flashes are heavily influenced by what you eat and drink. Caffeine, alcohol, sugar, and spicy foods are some of the most powerful triggers. Why? Because all four create rapid changes in blood vessels and stress hormones. Caffeine and sugar spike adrenaline and cortisol. Alcohol dilates blood vessels, then drops blood sugar, creating instability. Spicy foods directly activate heat receptors in your mouth and gut, which send signals to your hypothalamus. Think about this. You might have been blaming your body, when in reality, the coffee you drank at 4 p.m. or the wine you sipped with dinner set the stage for the 2 a.m. flash. The solution is not to cut everything forever, but to observe your patterns. Keep a flash journal. Write down what you ate, when you ate it, and when flashes hit. Within 2 weeks, most people see the links. And once you know your personal triggers, you can decide when they're worth it and when they're not. Now let's move to exercise. Here's the paradox. Exercise can both trigger and prevent hot flashes. High-intensity workouts raise your core temperature, and if you jump straight from sitting on the couch to sprinting, you might set off a flash. But regular exercise overall reduces stress hormones, stabilizes circulation, and improves sleep, all factors that lower hot flash frequency. So the key is balance. Aim for moderate daily movement, brisk walking, cycling, swimming, yoga. These keep your blood vessels responsive and your nervous system calm. Then, when you do high-intensity training, sandwich it with the cool wave breath. Before you start, do 2 minutes of slow breathing to set your nervous system baseline. After you finish, repeat. This keeps your thermostat steady instead of flipping into panic. One more thing about exercise. Strength training is powerful, not just for your muscles, but for your hormones. Lifting weights increases growth hormone and balances cortisol. And remember the muscle pump effect we talked about earlier? Regular strength training makes your circulation more stable all day long. That means when a flash tries to hijack your system, it has less leverage. Now let's tackle sleep. Because if there's one thing women beg me for when it comes to menopause, it's not just fewer flashes, it's better sleep. Here's the cruel cycle. Flashes wake you up. The lost sleep raises cortisol, and the cortisol makes flashes worse the next night. The only way out is to break the loop. And the way you do that is with pre-sleep rituals that calm your nervous system before you even climb into bed. One of the most effective rituals is to combine the 3 moves into a bedtime sequence. Start with 5 minutes of cool wave breath. Add 20 calf pumps and 10 hand squeezes. A finish with 3 core reset press cycles. The whole thing takes less than 10 minutes. But what it does is signal to your hypothalamus, the body is safe, calm, and cool. You enter sleep with a nervous system already tilted toward rest. And when a flash tries to break through at 2 a.m., your baseline is steadier, so the flare is smaller. So let's pull everything together into one clear, actionable plan you can start tonight. Daily anti-flash routine. Morning. Drink a glass of water before coffee. Add a tablespoon of ground flaxseed to breakfast. Do 1 minute of cool wave breath before starting your day. Afternoon. If you feel a flash building, use calf pumps and hand squeezes under your desk. Sip water instead of reaching for extra caffeine. Evening. Keep dinner light. Avoid alcohol or spicy foods if you're sensitive. Take a 20-minute walk to lower cortisol. Bedtime. Do the 10-minute sequence. Cool wave breath, calf pumps, hand squeezes, core reset press. Sleep in a cool, layered environment. That's it. No expensive pills, no endless supplements, no feeling trapped. Just consistent, simple practices that retrain your body over time. And let me end with this thought. Menopause is not a disease. It's a transition, a powerful one. But transitions can feel like chaos unless you have tools. These 3 moves are your tools. They put the steering wheel back in your hands. So the next time someone tells you hot flashes are just something you have to live with, you'll know the truth. They're not random. They're not unstoppable. And you are not powerless. Practice the moves. Respect your triggers. Build your daily routine. And watch as your body begins to listen to you again. Because control is not lost. It's waiting for you to claim it. To watch more interesting videos like this, click any of the cards showing on your screen.